Hello. What's up? It's been a little bit. So what happened was that I basically finished reading New Moon, and it gave me a reading slump. So I finally had the motivation to start Eclipse. I'm reviewing Eclipse by Stephanie Meyer, which is basically the third book in the New Moon, not the Moon, the Twilight series or saga or whatever. A lot of things that I'm going to talk about today are going to be like referenced. Some of them, but a lot of things are going to be referenced to my other videos because I mean, things obviously connect. This is obviously going to be full of spoilers for this book, and I'm probably going to talk a little bit about the other books, so yeah. Oh, by the way, I gave this book 3.7 stars. It's a strange book. I took a bunch of notes, too. I mean, look at this. Well, you can't really see them, but I took a lot of notes while reading this. What can I say about this book before going into spoilers? I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it as much as I hated New Moon. I didn't hate it at all. I kind of have like indifferent feelings towards it. I mean, I read it and I enjoyed like the time reading it, but when I was done, it wasn't like like that feeling of like, oh wow. No, I was just like, okay. Nah, that was okay. So it's like a 3.7. The reason why I gave it more is because I did enjoy some things like a lot, but some things I didn't. And some things were just so forgettable. Basically, this book is all about the love triangle. It like focuses so much on Bella, Edward, and Jacob as like a love triangle, a lot, like more than what I thought it would. And then it also focuses on giving Victoria, the main villain of New Moon, I would say, and Twilight, but you know, she's like kind of like the main progressing villain that has been going on for 3 books already. It's like a closure for her. I think this book was written to lead to Breaking Dawn. Like this was like a bridge of stuffing, which sucks to say. I mean, it sucks to call a book stuffing, but it does feel like it a little bit. It's a lot of ground points like marriage and love triangle and like a closure for Victoria, kind of like things that were like, okay, we're done, we're ready for Breaking Dawn. So if you guys have seen my previous videos, you guys know that I feel really strongly about Bella. I don't like her. We know that. A lot of people don't like her, actually. I was like reading some things online about it, and a lot of people do feel the same way I do, which is a relief because I was like, okay, at least I'm not the only one like hating this girl. But I really don't like her. And this book didn't make it better. There's a lot of things in this book that did make me mad about her, but this book was the only one out of like the 3 of them that I've read that have felt like a little bit more like I sympathized with her more in this book than I did in the other ones. One aspect that I really enjoyed about this book in particular was the amount of history to it. You know how I mentioned how I loved, I don't know if it was New Moon or Twilight, but in one of those books, I loved the history and how like the vampires all the time like tell their stories about how their lives were before, and I think I touched upon Alice's story in Twilight. It was really I just really enjoy those historical aspects, and in this book we got like 3 or 4 stories that were so interesting to me. In this book we got a lot of Rosalie's story and why she doesn't like Bella and why she doesn't want Bella to be a vampire, why she wants her to appreciate her human life, and Jasper's story about everything about the newborns, and everything was really interesting. And obviously it touched upon the themes of this book, which is newborns. I love the way Stephanie Meyer describes almost everything except for dialogue. So it's kind of like a big problem for me where it's like, I love her action descriptions, and I'll get into that in a second, and story, like she tells stories and it's very good. She describes the plays and the weather a lot very well, and I loved it. But the dialogue is always very weak for me, and it's still weak in this book. But you know, I'm not really picky on that, so I don't really touch on that a lot, but it was a thing that happened for me. So now we're getting to a really annoying part. Not as like annoying in book, but annoying in character, which means that the book is kind of good, but something happens that makes me super mad. So in this book, Jacob finally reveals his love for Bella. Basically, Bella friend zones Jacob, which is totally her right, totally okay. It's hard for her, obviously, but she has to. She's in love with Edward, and as much as I don't like her, I have to accept that. Like they're dating, it's fine. Like it's their thing. Jacob comes out and he's like, hey, Bella, I'm in love with you. Like, I'm in love with you. Let me just narrate what I highlighted. Suddenly, he was serious. He took my chin in his hand, holding it firmly so that I couldn't look away from his intense gaze. All the more reason to fight harder now while I can, he whispered. He still had my chin, his fingers holding too tight till it hurt. His lips crushed mine, stopping my protest. He kissed me angrily, roughly, his other hand gripping tight around the back of my neck, making escape impossible. I shoved against his chest with all of my strength, but he didn't even seem to notice. We see how they kiss, and then she's trying to stop, and she intensely describes how it's hurting her, and it's not correct. This is like something that's really annoying to me, how Jacob, who is this boy who I kind of trusted in New Moon, just becomes like this whole, like, I hated it. When he kissed her aggressively, she punched him. Well, she tried to punch him, but because he's a wolf, when she punched him, she broke her knuckle. And it was really painful for her. And he's like laughing. He's fine. He's like happy that he got to kiss her, which is totally toxic. He drives her home. I completely agree with Bella. Bella has all the right to get mad, angry, cry. This is when I agree with her. This is when I was like, yeah, Bella, you know what? Let it out. This is correct because this is what he did was not right. So basically what happened is that they get home after the whole kiss thing. Bella, like, her knuckles hurt. She's angry. Jacob is like super happy that he just got to kiss her. Charlie hates Edward with all of his heart, like his whole soul. He hates him, at least at this point. And he loves Jacob, and he wants Jacob to be with Bella. He doesn't want Bella to be with Edward at all. So basically they come in, and Charlie's ecstatic that Jacob is there. He sees her angry, and he's like, what's wrong with her? And Jacob is like, oh, she broke her hand, I think. And then he's like, why? And he's like, because I kissed her. And you know what he says? Jacob laughed. She hit me. Why did she hit you? Because I kissed her, Jacob said, unashamed. Good for you, kid. Charlie congratulated him. So wrong, and I feel so bad for Bella. Like, in that situation, it's so sad. So what I wrote down on the book was, regardless of Charlie's opinion towards Edward, he should care more about his daughter's happiness. So even if you don't like Edward, and even if you like adore Jacob, if somebody hurts your daughter, I think the right thing is for you to care about your daughter's happiness and well-being more than anything else, It makes me mad because I had hopes for Charlie, and he just destroyed my hopes for him. This is the scene that made me fall in love with Edward. This scene kind of like put it all out for me. It was Edward being a hero, and I was like all for it. I was like, yes. Bella calls Edward. She tells him what happened. He comes over immediately, and he takes Bella and he puts her in the car, and he's gonna take her away to Carlisle because he's gonna fix her knuckle. But he doesn't leave without giving Jacob a warning. And this is when I fell in love with Edward Cullen. So this is what Edward said to Jacob. But if you ever bring her back damaged again, and I don't care whose fault it is, I don't care if she merely trips or if a meteor falls out of the sky and hits her head. If you return her to me in less than perfect condition that I left her in, you will be running with 3 legs. Do you understand that, mongrel? And then Jacob is acting all tough and like ridiculous and childish, and he rolls his eyes, and then he's like, and if you ever kiss her again, I will break your jaw for her, he promised, his voice still gentle and velvet and deadly. I enjoyed that because I was really happy that it got like a little closer. Moving on. So basically a big thing about this book is a big outbreak and like murders are happening in Seattle, and they just introduce us to the whole newborn theme. When people first become a vampire, they're called newborns, and they're very strong and fast, and they're very thirsty for blood. So basically a whole like group of newborns were like killing people in Seattle over and over and over again. It all turns out to be connected to Victoria, which is the main villain of like the 3 books, and she's obviously taking revenge towards Bella because Bella was persecuted by James in book 1 in Twilight, and then Edward kills James. So Victoria obviously hated that. She loved James, so to like take revenge, she wants to kill Bella to take revenge. This whole group of vampires are being controlled by Victoria, and she's leading all of them to kill Bella. She wants a whole group of newborn vampires because she knows that the newborn vampires are stronger, are faster, and they're better at fighting, and they have different styles. that is when Jasper's story comes into place, because Jasper was once a newborn and he becomes part of like this clan of like, when he becomes a vampire, he becomes a newborn and part of like this clan of killing people, just like these guys are. So Jasper knows how to fight newborns, and he teaches and trains everyone. The Cullens join with the wolves, the tribe, the Coulets, which is Jacob's tribe, and Jacob obviously joins to fight the newborns. They want to fight and get rid of them because they could wait, but one, the newborns had already smelled Bella's scent, so if they waited, she was gonna die. And second, they didn't want the Volturi to get involved, because if the things kept happening, the Volturi would come and get rid of them, and that would be really risky for Bella, because at the end of New Moon, they're really close to dying. Bella is really close to dying because they encounter the Volturi in Italy. That's when Edward was about to kill himself. They were gonna kill her, but Arrow sees the future through Alice. He can read Alice's future and see that Bella will eventually become a vampire. So they trust that, and they let her go, and knowing that she will become a vampire soon. Going back to the Volturi, they didn't want them to come really close to them because they would find out that Bella is still a human, which is a big risk in the vampire world because humans aren't supposed to know about their existence, so Bella is a risk. So they were like, we have to get rid of these newborns quick. We have to get rid of them quickly and be done. The whole thing with the newborns, even though it wasn't too laid out for us, where it's like everything, the story, I'm gonna give props to Stephanie Meyer because she did write a novella called The Second Life of Bree Tanner. This book didn't really give us much about the newborns, more except for like what they were thanks to Jasper, and what they did thanks to Jasper, and how they fought thanks to Jasper. But it wasn't lots of like, who is Riley and who is Bree Tanner and who are these people and what's going on really. And I give props to Stephanie Meyer for just backing up Eclipse with like a little, here's a little novella, just so you can know a little bit more about what's happening. Because ultimately, Twilight is more romantic than action-packed. Action is kind of like the background to like keep it interesting and like supernatural, but it's very heavy on romance. So I liked that she just like added that little novella to back up for the fans who wanted to know really what was going on with the newborns. Stephanie Meyer is so good at describing things, including action scenes. Very fun. I had fun. I was actually very immersed into the book when that happened, like the whole fight, and I loved it. It was so perfect. So if we remember, I think this was in New Moon, there was a certain line that Bella says, and that made me really annoyed and like made me mad. She basically used the analogy of Y chromosomes. Bella in New Moon says that you have to be a boy to understand motorcycle talk. She basically states that you have to be a boy, like you strictly have to be a boy to just to understand why, like motorcycle talk, like what are they talking about if they're talking about motorcycles. And then in this book, she used the Y chromosome analogy again. So this is when Bella is talking to Billy, which is Jacob's dad. This was before the whole fight with the newborns happened. So they were like preparing, and like Bella's talking to Billy, and she's like, oh my god, take care of my dad, because he's gonna stay with him to distract him and take care of him. And Billy says, I wish I could be with the rest of them tomorrow. Being an old man is a hardship, Bella. So basically, he's not saying anything wrong. He's saying that he's old and that he can't go fight as a werewolf with them because he's old. And Bella just takes this to a different level. I don't know why. And she says this: the urge to fight must be a defining characteristic of the Y chromosome. They were all the same. Upsetting. So sad. Something else happens, and Bella and Jacob are talking about how, again, they're talking again about Jacob liking her. Jacob being like, you like me too. Come on. You kiss me, I kiss you. We like each other. And Bella's like, no. And Jacob is basically just pushing. And I'm going to narrate what happens. So Jacob says, sometimes I think you like me better as a wolf. And then Bella says, sometimes I do. It probably has something to do with the way you can't talk. And then he says, no, I don't think it's that. I think it's easier for you to be near me when I'm not human, because you don't have to pretend that you're not attracted to me. And then he says, do you ever get tired of lying to yourself? You have to know how aware you are of me. Physically, I mean. And then I wrote down, even if for some reason you are right, Jacob, this is still not okay. And if he has any sort of respect towards anybody, he shouldn't even do that. Because you shouldn't even do that to somebody you love. because you're hurting them because you're hurting the other person. I was never Team Jacob, but I never hated him, and now I kind of do. This is something that I really that I remark about Edward and how much maturity he has in him, and how patient he is. In the whole tent scene where they're camping together, it's Bella, Edward, and Jacob. They're on a mountain and it's really cold, like extremely cold for Bella, and it's snowing and she's really cold, and Edward can't really be close to her or cuddle her because he is physically cold, like really cold, so it wouldn't help. But Jacob is the opposite, and he's physically warm all the time. That's why the chapter is called Ice and Fire, or Fire and Ice, and I think it's really smart. I thought that was really smart. I don't know, for some reason. It's a whole chapter dedicated to Edward and Jacob talking about feelings and their feelings towards Bella, especially Edward opening up. And that's something I wrote down, is that even though Jacob was being super annoying throughout chapter 22, Edward was able to keep his composure and talk about his feelings about Bella while Jacob was cuddling Bella, like cuddling her. Edward was mature enough to just keep his composure and just talk about her and talk about how much he loves her. I thought that was really special and cute. So basically, I marked up a lot on these pages because this is what made me the most mad while reading this. It's basically a scene at the end, almost at the end, where Jacob finds out that Bella and Edward are getting married. And he's really physically upset, like you can see in his face. Bella is very naive and sensitive, and she cares so much for Edward, but she also cares so much for Jacob. So when she sees him so upset, she wants to do anything to help him, anything to really help him. And Edward had stated before that he cares so much about Bella that if Bella asks to be kissed by Jacob, he would let her because it's her decision. So basically, Jacob took advantage of this and manipulated Bella into kissing him, basically. Jacob tells Bella that he doesn't have any will to live anymore. He's gonna go kill himself. He said he's gonna go to the arena or like the clearing where they're fighting, and he's just gonna let himself die there by a newborn because he can't have Bella anymore. So he basically persuades her, manipulates her into kissing him. She basically is so desperate that she doesn't want to lose him like as a friend that she just yells, "Just kiss me, just kiss me, like just kiss me, because I don't want you to go kill yourself." And this opens up Jacob's like gateways. It's kind of like the key to Jacob kissing her without any consequences. And Jacob goes and obviously kisses her. Now, this is something I didn't know, but Jacob, the way Jacob kisses her, it's not only a kiss. Jacob aggressively kisses her. It's very aggressive. Bella is feeling assaulted, and it's so concerning to see this. What's happening there, if you've read Twilight, if you read this book, the whole aggressive kissing without any like will, because Bella really doesn't want to, and it's very horrible for her. It's not okay in any way possible. And out there in the world, that happens all the time, where people get kissed and assaulted, and it's not okay. It's not okay. And what he does, it's not okay. I don't like Bella at all, and I still don't like her. But nobody deserves to be treated like that, and nobody deserves that, so it's horrible. I think Edward is the perfect person for Bella. Edward's patience and understanding is so big, especially in this book, and it really does contrast with Bella's weird personality. Yeah, you could think of Jacob and Bella together, but I couldn't. It just doesn't even seem right after what he did. And when I think of Edward and Bella together, it makes sense, because even though I don't like Bella, a lot of people won't like her too, but Edward has the willpower to love her that much that he will take care of her. He will just take care of her and anything that she needs. How much patience he has towards her is what she needs in her life. It's exactly what she needs. A person like her, there's a lot of people like that in the world, and when they find the person who will tolerate them and like help them grow, that's perfect. And I think that's Edward for her. What can I say about this book? It made me feel a lot of things, which can be a good thing. I think some things were giving out the wrong message because they weren't really treated correctly, which could give the wrong message, especially to young teenagers, like younger than me, like preteens, because I'm still a teenager, like younger than me, like who are gonna get the wrong idea. I think the important thing is to know how wrong what Jacob did was and how wrong some things are. But overall, as a story, I think the book is very solid. Thank you so much. I appreciate you watching this, and I'll see you someday later.